The signing of a new ceasefire for East Ukraine after mammoth 16-hour negotiations between the leaders of Ukraine, Russia, France and Germany has produced a wave of cautious optimism in Europe. Following the talks, German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Francois Hollande, accompanied by Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko, rushed to Brussels for a summit of EU leaders, the start of which had been delayed in anticipation of their arrival. Merkel offered her take on the new truce, which begins at midnight on Sunday. A previous ceasefire signed last September proved to be ineffective. I want to say one more time, this is a glimmer of hope, no more and no less. We will try to use it, but it is now very important that words are followed by actions. Ukraine's Poroshenko, meanwhile, thanked the EU for its support throughout the conflict with Russian-backed insurgents.
It was a very difficult negotiation, and we expect not easy implementation process. Ukraine has always been very responsible in implementation of the Minsk agreement, unlike of the other sides. That is also why I arrived to Brussels to coordinate our next step with the European Union partners. The EU has demonstrated, again, as usual, the real partnership with Ukraine, and I want to thank President Tusk and all the leaders of the state, of the member state, for this strong support.
The deal signed in Minsk stipulates a withdrawal of heavy weaponry from the front line of the conflict and includes a number of political measures, including observance by the Ukrainian authorities of a law granting militant-held areas in East Ukraine special status. Poroshenko says in the hours until the ceasefire officially begins, the pressure on the Russian-backed insurgents must be maintained.
We demand immediate ceasefire, without any precondition. Unfortunately, they demand that we have at least almost 70 hours before the ceasefire was launched. Immediately after the deal was signed by the Trilateral Contact Group, the Russian-backed terrorists start the offensive operation. That's why it is vitally important for us, for all of us, to make a pressure to keep the promises about the ceasefire, about the withdrawal of the heavy artillery, about immediate release of the hostages, about the withdrawal of all the foreign troops and mercenaries from the Ukrainian territory, and about the close the border as a key element for the sovereignty of my country.
The US has indicated that it will consider easing sanctions imposed on Russia if the new agreement proves to be effective on the ground in East Ukraine. British Prime Minister David Cameron has echoed those sentiments.
If this is a genuine ceasefire, then of course that would be welcome. But what matters most of all is actually actions on the ground rather than just words on a piece of paper. And I think we should be very clear that Vladimir Putin needs to know that unless his behaviour changes, the sanctions we have in place won't be altered.
Prior to the announcement of the ceasefire, calls had been growing for Western nations to provide weapons to Ukraine. That option appears now to be on hold, with all eyes on East Ukraine ahead of midnight on Sunday, when the truce officially comes into force.